Yes, me, Mr. Tory Lanez, is going to show you guys how I come up with the concoctions of music in my brain.
Before Tory Lanez would become one of the most successful artists to come out of Canada, before he would have tracks with Meek, Wayne, Rich the Kid, Casanova, Chris Brown, T-Pain, Trippie Redd, Bryson Tiller, Gunna, Bhad Babie, 6ix9ine, and many more. Before Tory would have more than 750k likes on Facebook, close to 2 million followers on Twitter, over 2 million subscribers on YouTube, and 4 million followers on Instagram at the time of this recording. And before Tory would give himself the title of Best Rapper Alive, challenging basically every rapper in the world to come at him, and actually getting into lyrical warfare with the likes of Joyner, Lucas, and Don Q. In an old interview, Tory Lanez said this: "I never want to put that in my head like I'm this famous guy. I'm just like everybody else, and there's nothing that separates me except that I do something that might be different from your hobby or your passion. But I've learned so much about calculation, management, and making moves at the right time. I'm patient." And this past year, we've definitely seen just how calculated Tory Lanez really is.
Always make people be on their toes about you, you know? Like, never let them know exactly what you about to do next. You know, it's like chess. You know, you make a move, but never let the person know your next move, you know?
If you've been online at all in the last year, then you've definitely seen Tory Lanez trash talking somebody. But the dude has backed up pretty much all of the talk that he's done. Tory is the same guy who has said in interviews for the past 8 years that he one day wants to be the biggest artist in the world. And in order to make that happen, you need a lot of self-belief, an insane amount of talent, and you have to be able to beat the best. So Tory has decided to treat the rap game like Mario and is trying to level up with each battle in hopes of one day reaching the bosses like J. Cole and Pusha T. And honestly, at this point I'm starting to believe. Whatever you want to say about Tory, he had an absolutely massive 2018, and forget about Soulja Boy for a second, Tory's hairline definitely had the biggest comeback of 2018. Hey, Jeremy, I know you filmed this video a few months ago and were really excited about who Tory would battle next, but a couple months after you filmed this video, Tory tweeted saying that he was done with all the negativity and that he wasn't really in his best headspace, so just letting you know. Also, cool beanie, bro. Was it cold in there while you were filming in LA? Yeah, that's what I thought, but I bet you were having one heck of a day while filming, right? All right, I'm gonna go attend to future business. I'll see you guys later. But before all of the rap battles and before all of the success, Tory was the son of a preacher who lost his mother at 11 years old. The tragic event left Tory searching for answers and using music as therapy. But his anger and frustration was taken out in other ways also, getting suspended from school over 100 times and eventually ending up homeless in the cold streets of downtown Toronto. He would work minimum wage jobs and hustle to try to provide for himself before eventually working on music full time and catching the attention of some of the biggest names in the industry. But his journey was long and he definitely needed an update. What's going on, good people in the comments? Shout out to the people watching at home, at school, on their lunch break, at work while they should be doing other things, and anybody else out there. My name is Jeremy Hecht, documenting the life of fellow Canadian Tory Lanez prior to fame. Here for you on Before They Were Famous. And although I am a new host for this channel, I am not actually Michael's biological son, regardless of what the comments will tell you. That's just my non-biological brother. We've done other bios on the weekend, and Michael just did an epic 20-minute long video on Drake that goes through his entire journey from 0 to 100, and you have to check that out after you finish watching this video. Let us know in the comments down below who you want us to document next, but enough with the talking. Let's get into it. Daystar Peterson was born on July 27, 1992 in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. His mother Luella immigrated from Curacao, and his father Sunstar came from the Barbados. Tory's dad was a preacher, but before spreading the good message of the Lord, he was actually a part of a traveling breakdancing crew, and they even performed at the Juno Awards, which is basically like the Canadian Grammys. In a 2011 interview with the Stanford Arts Review, Tory said this: "My name Daystar comes from when my mom was in the hospital. She was pregnant with me, and my dad was praying and put his hand on her stomach and said, 'May God grant my son longevity and long life till the day dawns and the day star rises.' And he said God stopped him in his prayer and said, 'That's his name. That's your child's name.' He says the name means a revolutionary light of progress for my generation." Damn, that's high expectations for a baby. My last name is apparently just a type of fish.
You that fish boy from the TV?
Daystar's family moved when he was still young, so he grew up in Montreal and was the youngest of 4 brothers and 2 sisters.
and our house was pretty full.
When he was only 7, his family flew to the States and created a new life in sunny Miami, Florida, where Daystar began rapping around the house at the age of 9. But we have John Madden to thank for Tory's rap success. He started rapping for real because of a game of Madden. Daystar was losing to an older cousin in a heated game, and since he was too small to fight his cousin, after the game, he started writing diss rhymes in his garage to take out his anger. Both his father and his mother were missionary preachers, so they would listen to gospel music in the household. But their job also meant that they would have to travel all over the country for work to help heal people. When Daystar was just 11, he was traveling along with his parents. One day, his mother, who was anemic, wasn't feeling well and went to the hospital before Daystar went to school. By the time he came home from school that day, his mom tragically passed away. He says the passing of his mother influenced him to create music more seriously and to properly put down some of his thoughts. Confused and angry by the sudden loss of his mother, Daystar became a troublemaker with no respect for authority.
The influence that my dad had and the way he spoke to people, I think plays a big part in the type of person I am and the type of confidence that I have, and it's because I get that from my father.
A year later, his father remarried and moved to Atlanta, Georgia with the family, where Daystar was still getting into trouble. It was in Atlanta that he met his friend Hakeem, who was working as a janitor at the time and would give kids nicknames all over their ATL neighborhood. Hakeem gave Tory his nickname of Lanes since he was always running, skateboarding, or roller skating across the street with no regard for oncoming cars or traffic lanes.
Big brain.
His behavior kept getting him expelled from school, and Tory claims he has been suspended over 130 times in his school career. His teacher, Miss Thomas, even told Tory that he would never make it and that another girl in their class would eventually be writing his checks.
Well, thank you, Miss Thomas, for that, because that gave me the motivation to do what I wanted to do.
But even though his behavior at school wasn't top-notch, music was always a consistent way for him to take out some of his anger. He started writing punchlines down in a notebook, and one day he battled someone at the movie theater. He recalls the battle as a slaughter. Doesn't sound too different from how he describes his current battles on a IG Live.
I heard you talking all that smack about me. I'm here. I'm here.
But eventually, his dad had enough, and because of how much trouble Tory was getting into, he was sent to live with family in Queens, New York. His NYC stint didn't last very long, and shortly afterward, he moved back to Toronto to live with his grandmother. In high school, Daystar kept up his rapping and called himself Notorious in reference to one of his favorite rappers, Biggie.
I was going to school and I got expelled. Literally on my record, I'm expelled from every school I went to up until I dropped out.
One of the top comments on our last Before They Were Famous video on Tory said that in Florida, Tory was a really popular guy and even performed I Know I Can by Nas at their 5th grade talent show to everyone cheering him on. But when Tory moved back to Canada, no one liked him at school very much. He came across as a cocky rapper who lived in America who didn't really care about anyone but himself. He was continuing to get in trouble and became a little too much trouble for his grandmother to take care of, and she kicked him out of the house in the 10th grade and he dropped out of school. When Tory was 14, he became homeless, and for a while he was sleeping on park benches. And I hope it wasn't in the winter, because if you've been to Toronto in January, it is cold. I'm talking like scraping ice off of your windshields every morning cold.
Psycho man, what you smoking?
I'm not smoking, I'm breathing.
Tory moved to downtown Toronto and had to learn how to fend for himself, and quickly. He was living with a few other guys he didn't really know and was constantly fighting them. He was only 14, but the dudes were 18, 21, and 24, so the fights were a little uneven, but he said that having to fend for himself is what turned him into a man. He had to buy his own groceries and pay for his own stuff, so to fund that, he started hustling and selling drugs in the street. This is documented on his debut album, I Told You, through all of the skits. He was getting into trouble with the law, at one point facing 4 court cases all in the same week. He recalled the story in a 2013 interview where he was so fed up with the court cases and thought he was gonna get locked up for sure, so after walking out of court, he went straight to the mall and robbed a gold piece of jewelry in the middle of the mall.
Big brain.
Him and his friend even robbed 2 other kids that same day after school. But he told Hip Hop DX that he realized shortly afterwards that wasn't the life for him. This is not good. This isn't what I want to do. This doesn't make me happy. Yeah, I got change and I got money from people's pockets, but this isn't what I want to do. To escape from all of the hardships going on around him, and let's be honest, there was a lot of them, he'd freestyle battle constantly and started performing songs at local outdoor concerts. He started recording himself and would sleep in his friend's studio, selling his mixtapes in the local malls to try to gain a buzz.
Found a studio with this dude named Rhymes. I stayed, his aunt's basement was like a room about the size of this room, probably where the couch is right here. I used to sleep on the floor every day and wake up and record myself, had the booth in the closet, press record, run in the booth, press record, run in the booth, you know what I'm saying? Like that's where I came from.
The security guards at the malls started to recognize him because of how many times he would get kicked out of those malls for selling his CDs. Tory says that he even sold model Winnie Harlow his first mixtape. He was also mislabeled, whether it was intentional or not, I don't know, as Drake's little brother at one point. There's even an old video floating around of Tory betting Drake $10K that he would like his music.
Let's set the record straight. I'm not Drake's little brother, I never had him.
In terms of jobs, Tory worked at a lot of different places. He flipped burgers at McDonald's and Burger King, he worked as a telemarketer, and
I even worked at this place called the 84-cent store.
Tory was working at Denny's, but when he was 16, he got fired from the restaurant after sleeping on the job, and that was the last job he ever had. At that moment, he really decided that there was nothing else he was gonna do with his life instead of music. Then when he was 17, Tory learned how to sing. Without any training and experimenting on his own with different musical styles, he would practice each day by singing "Each Day Gets Better" by John Legend while riding on the city bus. He released his first mixtape in 2009 called TL to TO and started posting self-directed music videos and freestyles onto his YouTube channel.
You got it wrong if you try to take me out. They couldn't rip a track if they called a girl weave out.
He came up with the term swavy to describe his sound, which doesn't box in his music into one particular genre. He says that swavy describes his music, which can sound like straight bars one day and a Jamaican rhythm the next. But it was in February of 2010 that Tory would get his first big break. The Take You There and Beautiful Girls singer Sean Kingston was on YouTube one day looking for a video from Akon when he stumbled on Tory's freestyle over Lloyd Banks' Beamer, Benz, or Bentley, and he was impressed. Sean asked Tory to meet with him on the Toronto stop of his tour with Justin Bieber and even got him to perform live there.
He's the next superstar, man. We plotting a lot of new stuff with him right now.
Time is money.
And apparently, Justin Bieber is even the reason that Tory got verified on Twitter.
Yeah, he was like, yo, make sure this guy gets verified. I was verified next morning.
He signed with Kingston's label Time Is Money when he was turning 18 years old. At the time, he would post his music to Hot New Hip Hop and release videos through WorldStar to help gain buzz. He released several more mixtapes, including Mr. One Verse Killer and Mr. Peterson, and after 3 years, he went independent. While he was signed to Sean, he was actually banned from the States for 6 months because of visa issues. And trust me, I know all about visa issues being in the States coming from Canada. It's no joke. In a 2014 interview with TimeOut.com, he says, of the time, all of my networks were in America. I lost a lot of relationships because I was only able to be in Canada before I got a visa at the time. I couldn't do anything, and I remember after a while, all that stuff started dying out. People didn't really answer calls. After falling out with his label, he began to grind on his own. And on the song Loners Boulevard, Tory documents the story of how he met his manager Sasha, who later brought him out to a showcase in Texas for a big performance opportunity. But Tory says he almost got booed off stage, and it was his worst show ever. Even Bun B was in the crowd, and they were talking before the show. Sasha gave him some tips on how to structure his set and how to perform, and the next night he got another chance and performed better. Since then, Tory has been one of the best live performers in the game, hands down. He kept dropping mixtapes, and like he says on Loners Boulevard, and another mixtape, and another mixtape, and another mixtape, until people finally caught on. His manager helped him get a major label deal with Interscope, and Tory would finally get the push that he needed with his first single from his debut album. The song Say It went platinum, and the video ended up getting more than 220 million views on YouTube at the time of this recording. His 3 label albums have all been very successful as well, with I Told You now being certified gold, 2015's Memories Never Die selling 54K first week, and Love Me Now selling the same amount first week and landing at the #1 spot on Billboard's hip-hop/R&B charts. Recently, Tory almost died in a plane crash as he was heading to Hot 97's Summer Jam Festival.
We was in a jet flying one time, and the jet flew out, fell out the sky. The autopilot disconnected, while we was 39,000 feet. The autopilot disconnected. The pilots only fly the plane for the first like 8 minutes. Then the autopilot takes you to wherever you are going. We went from 39,000 feet to 11,000 feet, and we caught back at 11,000 feet. And like in 30 more seconds, we would have died.
A couple of years ago, his dad moved to Kenya and had 2 children, so Tory now has a little brother and sister who get to witness their older brother's massive global success. And Tory also recently had a child himself and says this of the experience.
He's starting to understand things, and like he's starting to repeat things. And like this is when it's starting to matter, like the things that I'm gonna tell him, you know, are gonna really actually mean something to him, because he's gonna take them and he's gonna say them until they actually become real.
But you know we had to talk about it, and in terms of beef, Tory is no stranger to conflict. Him and Travis Scott had to square up and almost got into it for real backstage.
Everybody just get out of here, Mike. Let's just shoot. Yo, it seems like you're just trying to come at. I'm not for that. I'm not for that.
At one point, him and Drake were trading shots on records, but the two have since become cool, taking some pictures, and Tory is even going out on the road with Drizzy for the European leg of his Scorpion tour. But it was 2018 that we really saw a new side of Tory. It was a war-ready Tory who wanted smoke with basically any rapper who was willing to throw shots his way. After calling out every rapper in the game and being so confident in his skills that he said he can out-rap anyone, Joyner Lucas's name got thrown into the mix, and the two went back and forth on record, with Tory ultimately becoming the self-declared winner, although it's still up for debate online.
The Joyner kid, he's nice, but he can't f with me.
Next was New York rapper Don Q, who took shots at Tory on the record's I'm Not Joyner, with Tory responding on Don Queen. Don replied again, but just like the Joyner battle, Tory felt no need to reply, or at least not at the time of this recording. Rapper Dream Doll even got thrown into the mix after she caught a stray bullet from Tory's Don Q diss and letting loose some private information about their intimate life on a diss track of her own called On Your Head. Other rappers including My Son, Mercules, J.R. Ryder, and Dax have all come for Tory with no reply. But Tory must have been somewhat offended by fellow Canadian Dax's rhymes, or at least the way he handled things online, because Tory pulled up in person on him to get an apology.
Apologize, bro. Apologize, bro. Or you know what's going on. Apologize, my. Apologize. I got you, bro. Apologize. Say sorry. Say sorry. Sorry, G. All right, bet. I got you, G.
Tory's real goal, though, is to get to J. Cole, and he said he's willing to do whatever it takes. He'll even take on the whole Dreamville crew to get there. Dreamville artist JID isn't having it, replying on Twitter, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. As for the future, Tory is planning on dropping a Spanish album at some point in time, but as for the rest of the story, well, you know the story because this is Before They Were Famous. That's it for this video. My name is Jeremy Hecht, and as always, let us know who to document next in the comments down below. Follow me on Instagram at Jeremy_Hecht. Subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, dream good, live better, and I hope you have one hecht of a day.